looking to grow revenues, increase profitability, or obtain financing? If so, you came to the right place.
Running a business is all about leadership. How do you become a better leader? Learn from the successful entrepreneurs and business owners how to lead your organization more effectively. That's why we created Leadership Live at 8:05, Talking Small Business, to help you succeed with your host, Andrew Frazier, Business Growth Pro and CFO and founder of the Small Business Pro University. Every Tuesday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern, we're joined by experienced entrepreneurs and business owners who share their secrets to success via live stream. Also, every Friday morning, we release a new podcast episode. Either way, you will learn about developing your business leadership skills from our roster of highly performing guest experts. Leadership Live is one of the many valuable resources provided through the Small Business Pro University, empowering business owners to learn, profit, and grow. Find out more at sbpro.u.com.
Welcome back to Leadership Live at 8:05. I'm your host, Andrew Frazier, and really excited to be back with you once again, talking small business, one of my favorite topics, and really having an opportunity to chat with different business thought leaders, experts about how you can run your business more effectively. Basically, enjoy having a chance to talk to you. I encourage you to ask questions and participate in it because this is for you. And, I have a tremendous guest and he's going to share some valuable things. He's going to be talking about how to double the value of your business. Who doesn't want to do that? So listen up. He's going to share some great things. Our guest is Marvin Storm. He's got his own business. And also he's has a podcast, Business Exit Strategies, and he really works with business owners to really figure out the best way to exit their business and do it most profitably. So if you're going to do it, you may as well do it for the most money that you can or the best situation that you can. So I'm going to bring Marvin on. Hey, Marvin, how are you doing tonight?
Hey, it's great to be with you here today. I'm looking forward to our discussion.
Okay, great. And same here. It's 8 o'clock here, but you're out in California where it's warmer and earlier. So you got to.
And I live up in Northern California in what is called the Sierra Foothills. So it's a little chillier than Southern California.
Okay. All right. So cool. But no, it's good to have you with us. We had a chance to chat a little bit about what you do and how you help business owners. And really look forward to talking to you about it and, giving our listeners a chance to hear what you have to share. So before we get started, why don't we just take a couple minutes, just share a little bit about where you're from, a little bit about your journey and how you got where you are and why you're doing what you're doing.
Well, yeah, I think that business owners out there, I've kind of sat in your chair. My journey is kind of interesting and maybe a little bit relevant to a lot of the entrepreneurs and founders out there that have established their own business and, have scaled it and grown it over time or are struggling to right now. And maybe they're just getting started. But my journey started, I guess, really when I was a kid. My father had his own business, so I saw the ups and downs of running your own business. My mom was, kind of the general manager, office person who kept the books. And my dad, really wanted me to get an education. He didn't really have a great education. He didn't actually graduate from high school. And so he kind of learned the ropes, by starting off. He was raised on a ranch, and when his father passed away, they sold the ranch and moved to a small town where I grew up in. And he eventually left the employment world working for somebody else and started his own business. And over a period of years, actually built a very successful business. He was one of the, kind of the more successful business people in town. And I watched that journey, and I guess it was kind of imprinted in my DNA because after, graduating from college, I was playing a pickup basketball game with some guys every Tuesday night. We'd get together and play for a couple of hours, and I became very good friends with someone that played with me there. And before you knew it, we were talking business and, kind of sharing our dreams and aspirations and goals. And before you know it, we turned in our resignation. I got my degree in accounting, and I was working for a large national accounting firm at the time. And but that DNA imprint, I think, was on, my, kind of personality at the time. And my co-founder and myself, we rented a small office and got a couple of desks and some phones and put our desk facing each other, and we were in business. And grew from just the two of us to renting a couple of floors in downtown and high rise, and built up a fairly successful business. But as entrepreneurs know, things change. The economy changes, competition enters the market, and we had a very successful business, but our personal goals and objectives changed. My partner kind of wanted to go left, and he wanted to go right, and I wanted to go right, and we just decided that it was time that we kind of step away from the business and exit at that time, and we did. And it was an equipment leasing business that we had created and built. And as we went our separate ways, I had done quite a bit of leasing for, businesses and, some franchise businesses. And I really took a look at, franchising at that time, and actually got involved in franchising and built up a fairly successful regional franchise company. And a number of years later, I purchased a franchise, acquired a franchise, and spun out a franchise company from that, started one from scratch and built it up over a period of years. And a few years ago, I stepped away from that business and sold it. And, I kind of thought it would be great to go from the fast lane where you have the pedal to the metal and you're working those long days and sometimes not taking vacations for long stretches of time. And I'm sure a lot of your audience can relate to that. When you're growing and scaling a business, you have to put in the time and pay your dues sometimes. And I thought it was just going to be great to kind of move over to the slow lane and take life at a much slower pace. I moved from the San Francisco Bay Area, where I had the business, and up to what is called the Sierra Foothills. And for any of you that know the geography of Northern California, it was kind of on the way up to Lake Tahoe. And so it's a little bit slower paced life. And after doing that for a while, I found that life in the slow lane is not all that exciting and actually kind of boring. And so I just started to reflect on, kind of my career and the things that I've learned along the way, how to grow and scale a business, and having a number of exits and selling different businesses. Each of those process that I went through was a little bit different. I learned a lot. The last exit I was involved in involved private equity, where I had brought in some outside capital. And that was an entirely different experience than anything else I'd experienced up to that time. Every time I sold a business, it was different, learned a lot. And I got to thinking about that event, which is a significant event, actually, other than perhaps your home and, your business is generally one of the largest assets on your balance sheet. And, when you look at how important getting it right is, you really need to, be able to execute at a fairly high level. And if you don't, you may drop that baton on that last lap when you're just getting ready and you've worked these years and sometimes decades to build something. And since you haven't gone through that sales process, that exit process, you kind of don't know what you don't know. And that was kind of the situation in several of the exits that I had. One thing that I've really learned is that entrepreneurs get really good at what they do. But when it comes to exiting their business, since they don't do it very frequently, they don't get very good at it sometimes, and sometimes drop the ball. And so I got to thinking about that process, and I love podcasts, and I listen to a lot of them every week. And I thought, I'm going to do a podcast, and I'm going to do a podcast about monetizing your business successfully when you sell or exit. And it's called Business Exit Stories, the podcast. And so I interview on my podcast, I interview transaction professionals, the people that are the deal makers. I don't actually talk to the entrepreneurs themselves, but I talk to the people that deal with businesses, transactions, and exit transactions every day, all day long. And they bring their good stories of successful exits. They bring their stories that didn't go well, where the entrepreneur may have not had a successful exit, or maybe not got as much as they thought they were going to get. And they share the takeaways of why those situations actually happened and existed. And for any entrepreneur out there that's growing a business, at some point in time, you're going to have to step away from your business. You may pass it on to a family member or a partner or employees or someone. But generally speaking, most exits these days are not generational exits and families passing it down to the next generation. It's actually sold to a third party. And if that's going to be the situation that you're in, then you really need to be aware of the things that you need to do to double, triple, quadruple the value of your business as you get to the point of selling it. Okay. I'm often asked the question, why in the heck would I want to worry about selling a business when I'm so busy building it? And that's a great question that I'd like to perhaps chat a little bit about here this evening.
Okay. No, definitely we'll chat about that and other stuff. Definitely having business in your blood is a good thing. And it's hard to retire, especially if you've been an entrepreneur or business owner, because you're just so used to doing things. Even as an employee, you have to keep your mind sharp. I was on a webinar last week on how to live to 100. And
good for you. I'm glad you got those goals out there.
Well, hey, you want to. But I learned a lot of valuable stuff. But one of the most important things was you have to keep doing stuff and keep your mind sharp, because a lot of people who don't make it that long leave what they did and then sort of aren't really doing anything or engaged. So, it's good that you really were called back to really, help people and do something that you love. So I applaud that. And, we're definitely going to talk a lot about exiting and, increasing the value on exiting. But before we do that, for those of you who are new to the show, it's produced by the Small Business Pro University. And if you don't know what it is, we're just going to take a minute to let you know what it is. And then I'll be back with Marvin, and we're going to be talking small business.
Do you own your business, or does it own you? Is your business growing, and are you making enough money? As a business owner, there are so many things you need to know to become more successful. Hello, my name is Andrew Frazier, the Business Growth Pro and CFO. I created the Small Business Pro University for you. Small Business Pro University has self-paced, dynamic, multimedia learning experiences created by more than 20 instructors who are business owners just like you. Small Business Pro University will empower you to become a masterpreneur.
Okay, I guess we're having a little technical difficulties. Not sure what happened there, but we're back. Back with Marvin and talking small business and really talking about how to double your business. But before we do that, most people, before you can even sell your business, most people end up just closing down their business and never sell. And can you talk a little bit about why that is, and what are some key things that you can do to avoid that?
Well, it's a great question, because I know that as you said, some people really don't understand that they have value in their business. And I'll give you a story that was shared on the podcast not so long ago, and it was about an individual that had a personal services business. He had spent nearly 30 years building up a great business. He made a lot of money on an annualized basis, but it was all because of this kind of the core competence that he has, his expertise, his knowledge that he brought to the table. And the business was basically him. He did have a few support people, but nothing really happened in the business unless he was there and doing the proposals and actually fulfilling the engagements. And as I said, he had a great reputation and a great brand in the niche that he was an expert in. And it came time that he was getting a little burned out, and he had some health issues, and he decided that he was going to sell not even sell his business. He was just going to sell the assets to his business, which consisted of some office equipment, some specialized equipment that he had for his business. But because the business was him, in his mind, he didn't really think he had a lot to sell, because he wasn't going to go with the business if he sold it. And so his plan was to liquidate and just wind the business down. And, when the advisor found out about, what this gentleman was thinking about doing, he invited him out to dinner, lunch, and they sat down and chatted, and asked him a few searching questions of, what was the motivation behind selling, and, why is he going to just wind it down and sell it? And during that discussion, he found, the advisor knew, the business broker was the advisor in this situation, knew that there was a lot of value that was there. But in the mind of the business owner, there wasn't a lot of value, because he viewed the value being in himself. And he said, as they went through this discussion, he sort of reminded him that he had a great reputation, a lot of goodwill built up. He had a customer base of several thousands of companies and people that he had dealt with over the years. And, the advisor really told him that there are companies out there that they would value that asset. And, he had thought that when he sold off his assets, his computers and his other equipment, that he'd get maybe $20,000-$30,000 for his business, this on a liquidation basis. But the advisor, really told him that if he would allow him, he would work with him and create a story behind the business and go out and actually contact other people in the industry who would value the brand that he had built, the website that he had. They would be able to look at his customer list and be able to transition that customer list. And the end of the story is that after going through this process, it took several months, 3 or 4 months to go through that process, but they approached some of the competitors in the industry, and they actually were able to sell the customer list and the website and the domain kind of these intangible assets that this person didn't even consider assets. They weren't on the balance sheet. He didn't really consider them to be real assets, but sold that business for nearly $300,000. Those intangible assets that had very little value in his mind ended up being relatively valuable to others who could step in and monetize all that goodwill and continue the website. And he even got a consulting contract where he worked part-time for a period of time. And so it worked out phenomenally for him. So he was actually able to increase the value of what he thought he had by a factor of 10. He, as I said, it was nearly $300,000, and he thought he was only going to get $20, $25, $30,000 at the max for the hard assets in his business. But sometimes you don't really know what you don't know. And in this particular case, he didn't really understand what an intangible asset was, what goodwill was, the value of all of the customers that he dealt with over the years. He just didn't really realize that because, quite frankly, he hadn't been down that process. He'd never done this before, so he just didn't know.
Yeah, no, that's a great story and great situation. Most of the times I hear the opposite, where the person thinks their business is worth a whole lot more than it really is. And, sometimes I'll get called in to do some evaluation or give people an indication of what their business is worth. And, I talked to a doctor who was trying to sell his practice. But, of course, what he did, his practice wasn't at its best when he decided to sell it. And a lot of people wait longer than they should to sell it. And I don't know about you, but a lot of times the best time to sell may be actually when your business is doing the best and you don't really want to sell. So can you talk a little bit about kind of when is the best time to sell?
Well, I think what you said is absolutely true there. I think that most entrepreneurs, when they're going to the bank regularly and life is good, the business is growing, why would you want to sell the golden goose? This is great. The business is doing well. And it's generally the last thing that an entrepreneur wants to do is sell the business when everything is going well. But a business has a life cycle, and if you look at the life cycle of a business, it starts out very slowly. You get past the startup phase and you start to scale your business, and you have kind of the acceleration phase where, things are starting to come together. You've hired some good people, you've gotten a reputation, you're getting repeat business, and things are going well. Competition really isn't as fierce as you thought it was going to be, and you've really been able to differentiate your products and services. And so life is pretty good. But, I don't know if any of your audience, or perhaps you, have read this book, and it's really kind of a business philosophy of the red ocean and the blue ocean strategy. The blue ocean strategy is really this phase of a business where there's little competition and your business is expanding, profits are good, and you think things are going really well, and they are going really well. But when things are going well for you, other people are looking at what you're doing and how well you're doing, and that will attract competition. And competition generally enters the market at a lower price point. And so you are forced, if you don't have really strong differentiation, to lower your price. And when you lower your price, your margins get thinner. And then the ocean, it used to be blue with very few fish swimming around. The sharks enter the ocean and start to devour the fish, and it becomes a bloody red ocean. And so then that is not the time to be selling your business when the competition is and your margins are dropping, your sales may start to plateau. And that's when most entrepreneurs say, I think it's time to sell. Well, I want to say that if you can just put yourself into the chair of a buyer, if you're a buyer and looking at a business where the sales have been really good for several years, a number of years perhaps, and going straight up, and then all of a sudden they start to slow and plateau, and then the business comes for sale, would you buy that business? Would you be excited to buy that business where sales are decelerating and the margins are getting narrower? Would you pay a lot of money for that business? You may be interested in buying the business, but the buyers are probably not going to pay a premium. And that's where you get into the situation that you mentioned a little bit earlier there, where a lot of entrepreneurs think their business is worth a lot more than it actually is. And the reason for that is that they equate, a lot of times you equate, all the hard work and the decades of sweat and blood and tears that have gone into your business, and you've toiled away for so long, and you equate that because you've put so much effort and time into it that it must be worth a lot of money. And that's not how businesses are valued, as you know. They're valued on historical earnings and what the business is doing today. And if the business is decelerating, as I said, it'll be worth a lot less than generally the entrepreneur thinks that it is. And so the time to sell the business, which is counterintuitive, it goes against almost every fiber in the entrepreneurial profile and thought process. The time to sell the business is when there's a lot of runway left, and the buyer can see that you've had really strong growth, and it looks like there's going to be a lot more strong growth because sales haven't started to decelerate and they're still strong. That's when you want to sell the business, because you'll get a much higher and more robust valuation of your business in that type of scenario than you will when things have plateaued or taken a downtick. And that's generally when people head for the exits and try to sell their business, is when things are not going all that well. And in the entrepreneur's mind, they really think that it's worth more than it really is in that type of scenario. So to answer your question, always sell your business when there's a lot of runway left, and you'll have interested buyers. You may have more than one buyer at the table because people want to buy opportunity. They want to buy the future. And if they don't see the future being really robust and exciting, they're not going to pay a lot of money for it.
Okay. No, that's great. You said a lot of tremendous stuff. So I'm going to back up a little so we can just dig into a few things that you said. But one thing I really liked is the trading places, because sometimes if we don't look at things from another perspective, we really don't understand what's going on and miss out on opportunities. I actually do that in the access to capital class I teach, because a lot of business owners go in and they're like, how come I can't get financing? But then when you turn it around and they have to make a decision on potential financing, they have to think a little differently. And
got to think like a banker,
right? And then they realize why they didn't get financing. So, but knowing's half the battle. So that's cool. And you talked about growth, and at the end of the day, growth, can drive more of the value of your business than what you've done in the past. But most businesses experience low or no growth. So how do you get growth? How do you help people get growth, and what are your strategies around that?
Well, growing a business is never easy. I think that you sort of alluded to that fact. You have to have a key differentiator. So I like to look at businesses the way, one of the guiding principles that I've found that has helped me a lot, even though people ask this question, why do I want to think about selling my business? I'm so busy, I'm overwhelmed, I don't have enough hours in the day to worry about selling my business. Why would I even think about that? that is years down the road. Well, I can tell you that if you start thinking about what you want in the future and what your business should look like in the future, then you're going to start making decisions that are a little bit different than the spur of the moment decisions that you make that are very tactical in nature, just to get through the day, just to be able to make that payroll. If you start thinking a little bit about what you want that business to look like in the future, you tend to think a little bit differently. It's a thought process. So I often tell people that I work with and coach that, you know, it's not necessarily that you put a lot of time, physical time, like so many hours a day or a week, into thinking about selling your business when it's years down the road. But what you do is you start thinking differently. It isn't the amount of time, it's your thought process. And so you start thinking about what can you do to differentiate your business from somebody else's business? Where are there gaps in the marketplace? What do you do differently? Maybe it's customer service. Maybe it's a price point. Maybe it's the speed of delivery of your service that you can turn around quickly. Whatever that differentiation is, if you can hone that differentiation, if you can start focusing on that and telling that story in all your marketing material and your sales presentations and the type of products that you offer, if you can create that differentiation, then you will begin to pick up momentum. If you can speak to the needs in the marketplace with the products and services that you have, that is more of a strategic type of thought process than it is tactical. And if you can start to spend some time thinking about how you differentiate your business, because I can tell you when it comes time down the road to actually put your business up for sale and to exit, that differentiation is going to mean a ton to the buyer sitting on the other side of the table. They're going to be looking and asking questions about what makes your business unique. So if you know that those type of questions are going to be asked, then you should start thinking about how you're going to answer that question. And if you just go along just day to day, it is very difficult to differentiate your business if you aren't thinking about what you can actually do to differentiate your service. Because one of the key principles of creating value in your business is that competitive differentiation. And if you get really good at differentiating your product, you may even be able to create what is termed as a competitive moat, where your differentiation is so great that competitors try to compete with you, but because you're so strong, your brand is so strong, your product and services are executed at such a level that you've created a moat, and competitors just find it difficult to, compete with you, to take your customers away. Even though they may lower your price, the price for your products and services, you're so good at what you do, people are willing to pay a premium price. And so you've created this phenomena of what is called a competitive moat. And if you can do that, but it takes the thought process, it takes being able to actually start thinking about it. And the reason that, and I did this in my situation when I was, in the heat of the battle, and I was working hard and trying to hire the right people, and it was so difficult to find the right people. I got so caught up in the day-to-day that I didn't take the time to kind of stand back and look at the bigger picture. Once I was able to do that, once I was able to just separate and take some time to start thinking about that, it was kind of like a camera lens coming into focus. All of a sudden, I started seeing my business a little bit different than I was when it was kind of out of focus, and I was just pedaling so hard that I couldn't focus on kind of what the future would look like. And so that's what I've learned over the years, is that you need to think a little bit strategically. And I think what focuses an entrepreneur on thinking strategically is if they can visualize the business that they want to sell. What would that business look like? What would the ideal business that you could build that would have a lot of interest and a lot of value in the future? And then you just start very methodically going through, ticking off the things that you need to do to build the business that's your vision. And without that, you get burned out. And I've been down that road where I've really burned myself out sometimes of a business, and just because it was so hard, and not until I could step back and bring it into focus could I see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Okay. No, I mean, you covered a lot of things that I talk to business owners about all the time. And especially when I'm doing training. And one of the first things I always say is failing to plan is plan to fail. Everyone's heard it a million times, but that doesn't mean they actually plan. So, like what you talked about, business owners get tied up doing stuff that's important and urgent, but the things that are going to move you forward the most are the things that are important but not urgent, and they're always on your list, but you never ever get to them. So taking the time and committing to doing it, even just a little bit at a time, can make a huge difference. So so definitely can see how that fits. We did have a question, and let me just put it up, and maybe you can address it. I have some thoughts on it as well, but I'll let you kind of take it for now. And basically, it's how far out before you decide to sell should you do an updated valuation of the business?
Great question. I think that you should always, so there's several different types of valuations out there. There are valuations that are kind of market evaluations that a business broker or an M&A advisor will do. And that's kind of a market evaluation on what the specific multiples are going to be in that market, and what other businesses are selling, and what the multiples are for that business. And those are relatively inexpensive to do. It takes just a little bit of homework to do. And if you're working with an advisor, they will do that for you, generally at no cost. And it's kind of similar to getting a market appraisal on the home and having a realtor come in and kind of tell you what the comps are in the area. Businesses work on a market evaluation, purpose, kind of the same way. And then there are the formal valuations that you pay someone that is a certified and credentialed valuation specialist, and those valuations can cost several $1,000s to, depending on the size of your business, $10,000, $20,000, because they do different methods of valuation and really looking at what the cash flow of the business is, and doing a lot of research and putting traditional valuation methods together, and they'll give you a nice report and all the methodology that went in and all the data behind that. And so, generally speaking, most businesses that are sold today don't go through that more sophisticated valuation process. They're looking at more market valuation, where you're looking at the actual earnings of the business, the cash flow of the business, what the revenue of the business is, and generally what the multiples are for that specific vertical that you're working in, the niche that you work in. So the question really was, how far in advance? A good management tool is to take a look at the valuations so that you're familiar with the valuations, and to do those on an annual or every 2 or 3 years, to have that in your portfolio, your files, so that how the market is reacting. If you're thinking about selling and positioning yourself down the road, and you go through the valuation and you go through the process of adjusting your earnings and stripping out all of the seller's discretionary earnings from your financials, and you go through that, and so what those issues are, then you're more able, when it comes time to actually list your business for sale, you're much more prepared because you've gone through the process of compiling and actually going through that valuation process. And it tends to change the way you think about your business a little bit. A lot of entrepreneurs focus on doing everything they can to reduce the profitability of their business so they don't have to pay taxes. While I understand that thought process, that is really working against yourself if you're trying to create business that's going to sell. For every dollar that you save, or fraction of a dollar, if you're in the 35% tax bracket, let's say 40%, tax bracket for those marginal rates at the top, for every 40 cents you sell, and your business is going to sell for 3, maybe 4, maybe 5 times earnings, you're really shooting yourself in the foot by depressing earnings like that, and trying to run a lot of expenses through that, create problems down the road and create credibility issues down the road. Yes, you can do tax planning, but you really want to think about what the valuation of your business is going to be. So if you're looking at 2, 3, 4 years, you want to start shifting that mentality away from reducing your income so you don't pay taxes, to positioning your business where you're paying an accurate tax based on what the revenue is going to be, because you're going to get a multiple many times more than anything that you'll save in taxes, in a 3 to 4 year period before you sell.
Okay, no, it's a great answer. I always say the same thing when people are looking for financing. Their accountants try and get them to minimize their taxes, but also that minimizes their profitability or eliminates it. And then why would someone lend to you if you're not making any money? Easy as that. So same as, why would someone pay you a lot of money for your business if it's not making any money? So, definitely.
Well, the problem is in the entrepreneur's mind. They're making a lot of money, and they may be making a lot of money themselves.
Right.
As you said, if you put yourself in the chair of the banker, or you put yourself in the chair of a buyer, they're going to be looking at their business through their lens. And you're never going to be able to adequately monetize your business and create a lot of interest in your business if you don't walk around to the other side of the table and see your business the way others are going to look at it. And so you really have 2 issues when you come to sell your business. You have to convince the buyer that they will pay what you're asking for the business, and you have to convince the buyer's banker that he'll lend the money to that borrower to buy your business. And if your business doesn't show the cash flow and the ability to repay a loan, the banker is never going to lend it. And so the buyer, even though he may love your business, may not be able to get it financed. And so you have to, just like you said, and you've repeated several times here in our discussion, you have to look at it from the position of the banker or the buyer. That's absolutely 100% true.
Okay. So
this is only as valuable as it can be financed.
Correct. And so, that makes a huge difference. So now, we've covered a lot of stuff, and an hour goes really fast, and we're getting close. So, but, one of the things that, I talk with people about, and I think that, you alluded to was, you really have to create a business that's sustainable and can run without you if you really want to get maximum value. And how often do you see that? And what is it that people do to accomplish that?
Well, I think the first thing that someone should do is to really understand and recognize that if you're a person that's running your business and you are the business, that is a bucket of buyers out there. And that bucket is pretty small. If you're looking to replace yourself with your understanding and expertise of the business, and you're going to market because you are the business and you're looking for a replacement of you, that's a very small bucket. If you can actually not be essential to the business and you have a general manager or a management team or someone that doesn't require you to be there every day, and that is difficult to do. It is difficult for an entrepreneur to make that leap. But if you make that leap, then that bucket is much bigger. You have a much bigger pool of buyers that will be interested in that type of business. That's because the business has management in place. And then there's even a larger bucket. If you are able to grow your business to a point where another company or a private equity group would be interested in your business, that's even a bigger bucket. If you generate the type of metrics that they may be interested in, because they will actually be able to get a return on their investment by investing in you, and their money that they invest in you can grow the business even bigger. There's a bigger bucket. And especially in this low interest rate environment that we exist in, there are a ton of money out there looking for good businesses in that bucket. And then if you can get even a bigger bucket, position your company to where it is of a strategic value, where the normal financial metrics don't make a lot of difference. A company is looking at you because of your customer base or the type of product that you offer, or perhaps they're going to come into your area and you're one of the larger companies in the area, or someone that has a big brand in the area, and they don't want to build it, they want to buy it. And the traditional valuation metrics kind of go out the window. And so the first thing you really do is understanding kind of the different type of buyers, and then making a decision which type of buyer you're going to go after, and then work very hard to position your company to appeal to that type of buyer. And so that's what it really starts with understanding the type of buyers out there and the type of buyer that you want to appeal to, and then working toward that. I think that's something that most entrepreneurs have a difficult time kind of shifting their gears towards, that frame of mind and thought process. So I might want to say one other thing here, since we're taking kind of a short break here. So, one thing that I think that most entrepreneurs really need to understand is that if they think they're going to optimize the value of their business and they're kind of the do-it-yourself mentality, I think that is a situation where you're kind of being penny wise and pound foolish. What I've found in my experience, even though you may have to pay a commission or a large fee to bring an advisor on, either a business broker or an M&A advisor, someone that's going to facilitate the transaction. I have a lot of stories on my podcast, this Business Exit Stories podcast, that clearly demonstrate that if you put together the right team, if you have a good CPA, a good attorney, you're good at business advisor to help you sell the business, they pay for their weight in gold. I have stories on the podcast where people have gotten 3, 4, 5 times X, from what they sold their business, because they had the right advisors, because those advisors know who is in the market. Sometimes they have companies that they know what companies are looking for, and so they know who to go talk to. They know how to tell your story. They know how to position your company to be appealing to certain types of buyers. And if you get the right team together, they're kind of worth their weight in gold. And I think that if you listen to the podcast, one thing I would really suggest that, business owners out there, you kind of want to learn from the experiences of others instead of making all the mistakes yourself. And that's one of the reasons I created the podcast, was really to help individuals learn from others' experiences. So the podcast shares all of these stories, the good ones, the bad ones, and some of the really unfortunate ones. And it has these key takeaways of what you need to do and what you need not to do, things that you need to avoid doing that will help to optimize the value of your business when it gets time to actually stepping away from your business and selling it. And I think that's something that I would advise most entrepreneurs out there as they're kind of working toward the end goal of monetizing all their hard work, that they'll be able to really focus on learning from others and not having to make all those painful mistakes yourself. And so that's one thing that I would advise that you do. Talk to other people in your industry who've actually exited a business, and if listen to a podcast like I have that will help you understand some of the steps and processes and things that you need to do and not do.
Okay. No, that's definitely very thorough way to look at it. You mentioned your podcast. I've got the address, so for if you're watching, I put it in the comments, but also here it is on the screen. So definitely, if you want to learn more, you can check out Marvin's podcast. As well, I'm sure you're familiar with John Werfelman, who wrote Built to Sell.
Sure.
Which is actually a really good book to gain further insight and understand it from the business owner's point of view. If whenever you're trying to do something, it's good to continually learn. And I guess he created the value builder system, which really he outlined 8 key drivers of value in in the valuation of your business. So there's 8 key things to focus on that will maximize the value of your business. Now, different businesses can do more or less in each of the things, but those are things that are looked at. So sure you're familiar with him. Any thoughts?
Sure, I am. Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of the things for your audience there, I've created a report that kind of outlines these steps that John Morlow talks about, and the things that I've learned from talking to the actual deal makers, kind of the things that you need to do. And I put it kind of into a report that kind of shows you how that you can dramatically increase the value of your business. You kind of follow these steps, and that report can be found just on the the podcast's website there, businessexitstories.com/report 2, the number 2. So report 2, there's a free downloadable report there that anyone that's listening, it's a good quick read. It's in the PDF format, and it sort of points out some of the things that any entrepreneur should somewhat be aware of as they kind of move their business toward positioning it for sale. Well, since we have kind of a silence here, I don't know if this is still recording or not, but I just might mention.
Okay. Okay. Sorry about that. I thought I was coming through, but
All right.
so, but yeah, what I was just gonna say is, yeah, this has been great. You've shared a lot of valuable stuff. It would be tremendous if you could really just boil it down into 3 actionable things that you would recommend people take away and that they could start to implement immediately within what they're doing. I'll give you a minute to think about it, and we're just going to share a little bit of information about an event that we do for entrepreneurs and business owners. For the past 10 years, I've been doing Power Breakfast events that have helped. We've had over 1,000 attendees and really helped people get millions of dollars in financing as well as economic growth. So just going to show you a quick video about what it is. We just had the last one a couple weeks ago, but the next one's going to be January 28th. So if you're in the New Jersey area, you're welcome to come check it out. And then we'll come back to Marvin and close it out with 3 key things that you should be taking away from this, and so you can put to work in your business immediately and move towards doubling the value of your business, because that's what it's all about. So
if you are looking to increase revenues, improve profitability, and or obtain financing for your business, you need to check out the Power Breakfast and Small Business Pro conferences.
My name is Andrew Frazier. One of the things we're here to do is supercharge your day.
Today's Power Breakfast has really been a phenomenal experience. I think it's exactly what business owners need, some true guidance of people who are genuine and really are leading them in the true direction of business growth and expansion.
The Power Breakfast is so important for the entrepreneurial community because it gives the various business people who come together an opportunity to interact and also do some business.
These events, hosted by Andrew Frazier, President and COO of Small Business Like a Pro, will supercharge your day.
welcome back once again to Leadership Live at 8:05. I'm here with Marvin Storm, and we just really chatted about exit strategies, how to maximize the value of your business when you sell. And want to just wrap up with a few key things that you can take away from this and should start to put to work within your business immediately. I'll let you go.
Well, I think one of the things that every entrepreneur that has a business needs to understand that they're going to, at some point in time, have to step away from their business, whether they pass it on to someone they know or to someone they don't know. And if that is the case, then it sort of makes sense that you need to decide, the type of buyer that you're looking for, as we've chatted before here. Who do you think is going to actually be the type of buyer that you want to be able to sell your business to, and then kind of work toward that? The second thing I think is you need to have some sort of time frame in mind. Now that time frame is probably going to move forward or backwards depending on circumstances, but you should have a time frame in mind and kind of work toward that time frame. It may be 2 years, it may be 5 years, it may be 10 years down the road, but you need to have that time frame in mind, because sometimes if you don't, you just don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. And if you can work toward that. And the last thing is that that the buyer sitting on the other side of the table is going to be looking at the financials of your business. And if your financials are not in great shape at that time, if you haven't taken the proper procedures and time to really be able to account for your cash flow and your expenses properly, you're going to have a tough time convincing the buyer or his banker that your business is financeable and that is desirable, that they would want to pay you what you're asking for it. if you have those type of things, know who the buyer is going to be, have kind of a time frame in mind and be working toward that, as well as keeping your financial reporting and accounting in order, because you absolutely know that the buyer is going to be looking at that as well as his banker.
Okay, so I have to say hallelujah to that, because sometimes I liken myself to a financial management evangelist for small business owners, because they need the good word in terms of being able to do that more effectively, because more often than not,
it's inevitable you're going to be asked that, so why not understand it and prepare for it?
Yeah, no, definitely. So, so that's right. Get your financials in order. Not only that, it'll help you run your business better, because you'll understand how your business works and be able to make it more profitable. Thinking about the time frame, as Marvin said. So, thinking about the future, and then thinking about who could be the buyer. So this has been great, Marvin. Thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule and hanging out with me tonight. It's
been a lot of fun.
So, and we'll have to do it again. And look forward to checking out more of your podcasts and continuing to the conversation. So, thank you very much for joining us.
It's been a lot of fun, and I do know one thing is that those entrepreneurs out there, you can hear these great stories of actual deals that take place, and you learn a lot from the mistakes of others just by listening to the podcast. It is entertaining.
Okay. Yeah, no, definitely. So recommend it, especially if you're thinking about exiting anytime in the near or medium future. So, okay. Thanks again. Let me just close things out for today. Once again, another great show. Had a great guest, and always look forward to hanging out with you all on Tuesday nights. Thanks for your comments and questions and joining us every week. And, just want to give you a heads up about next week. Each week we have a special guest who is shares valuable information. And then next week is actually Dale Caldwell. Dr. Dale Caldwell is going to be here with us. And he's going to be talking about accelerating your growth by learning faster. And, that should be a treat. He was a featured guest speaker at the last Power Breakfast and really blew it away. And, as a business owner, you have to continually learn. So how can you learn faster and better? Because that's going to help you be more successful as a business owner. So definitely encourage you to check us out next Tuesday, as all Tuesdays. And, at the end of the day, one of the most important things is to keep in mind is that the more you know, the faster you grow.
Thank you for listening to Leadership Live at 8:05, Talking Small Business. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and to the podcast on your favorite podcast platform. Leadership Live is one of the many valuable resources provided through the Small Business Pro University, empowering business owners to learn, profit, and grow. Find out more at sbpro.com.
Andrew Frazier here.
Okay. All right. Thanks, and look forward to seeing you next week.